Hello, my name is Imogen Caterer. The website I run is www.learninglife.club. It's great to speak to you today. I also run and oversee a number of Facebook website groups for SEMA students, and I'm kind of known from there. And I've had a number of people kind of approach me recently and asked me what on earth they're supposed to do about the syllabus change, because it's currently the 1st of October, and in very early November the 2015 syllabus of SEMA will cease to be in what's called the OT exams, the sort of multiple choice and calculation exams. They will cease to happen, and there will only be the case studies, because they run quarterly, left to run. And people have been coming to me and saying, well, what do I do? Should I continue to study? Should I do this or do that? And I can tell you, I am so keen not to answer those questions. Because, yes, I do a lot to help students, but I do a lot to help students in part because I saw something useful and valuable to students. And one of the key things within that I saw is that you all have your own inner wisdom, and you are the best navigators of your life. And all I can really do is point you in the direction of seeing that for yourself. Now, it is true that in the operational case study exam group, I give them quite a lot of advice on past papers and various other things that they could do to make their study easy, because there's so many resources out there that most people are unaware of. But I've never answered the question, how many past papers should you look at? And I've been asked it a number of times. And that's because it really depends on where you are and where your internal navigation is going to guide you. And you are a better guide if you will listen, not only listen to yourself, but also put aside some of this extraneous thinking that we go into. If you can put that aside, you'll start hearing your inner wisdom for yourself. You follow it substantially anyway, you're just not aware of it. So let me give you an idea on how to make decisions. Now, what many people don't realise, world population of 9 billion, virtually no one knows this little fact, is that I'm up against that syllabus change deadline myself. So I'm not saying this as somebody completely outside of that scenario. I'm currently saying this as somebody who is studying F2, who has found studying F2 kind of difficult because you know, there seems to be mythology going around that because I'm a coach, I should be marvellous and perfect and wonderful all the time. No, I find F2 hard, there's been questions, and I have had times when I've said I will not do it under the 2015 syllabus. There's no way I'm going to do it. I'll probably tell you a bit of that story today. But you know, it is a genuine issue whether I am going to pass it under this syllabus, or whether I'm even going to sit it under this 2015 syllabus, or whether I'm going to do it over 2019 with a new textbook and possibly a new, learning provider, another amount of money gone to a learning provider. So yes, it's real for me. Now, that's not my final management exam. There is one more to do, so it is not like my case study is on the line and I could perhaps avoid doing any level 2 syllabus change. No, that isn't my scenario. But what I'm going to tell you is something that can unlock all decisions. You can suddenly see something new about decision making that you've never seen before, that can work right across the board, make you a more effective decision maker, and possibly help you even if you become a finance director. I kid you not, some of my colleagues work and solve multi-million-pound problems, or help other people solve multi-million-pound problems by accessing this inner wisdom. it is worth way more than anything else that could come out of my mouth to pointing you in that direction of your inner wisdom is way more valuable than anything else that could possibly come out of my mouth right now. Okay? So those of you who have come to me wanting to know the answer to whether you should keep studying or not, I'm pointing you to it. It's not an answer. You may want a simplistic one like go and keep sitting F2, or go and work harder and you'll manage to pass all the prerequisites for the OCS exam. I'm not going to say that to you. I'm not going to say that to you. I'm going to give you something that is a nugget that is so much more valuable, and you could unpick this for ages. It may not instantly change your life, but you could unpick these principles for ages and see great results. So decision making. It's supposed to be tough, apparently. Except you make decisions all day, every day, and you think nothing of it whatsoever. You decide whether to start walking on your left foot or your right foot. You decide whether you're going to walk in a funny manner or a straightforward manner. You decide what you're going to eat, and there are people who have a lot of thinking around that and stew on it a lot more, admittedly, but there are people who also eat very easily, straight away, drink water very easily. Others have a lot of thinking about it. But many of these decisions are just second nature. But then we have decisions that we regard as bigger than that. Now, I just mentioned in dieting, if you've studied lots of nutrition in a certain desperate mental state and you've kept that going, you may have a lot of thinking about what you eat, and what you eat will seem very, very major. Okay, now it isn't just that you have the knowledge. I'm a fully trained nutrition consultant. I don't have that sort of massive thinking about work. It's something within you about anxiety and insecurity that you hold on to. Okay, so many people have that around food. I don't, even though I have quite a large knowledge of food. And then there are decisions that we deem important, that we indeed think is major, and we get. And what happens is we just have a lot of thinking about those decisions. So here's ours. That's just about visible, isn't it? Here we are, and we have the body on it. Okay, we have a little bit of thinking that buzzes around much of the time, and yet we have a certain inner wisdom which keeps us, which sort of inspires that thinking. So much of these days we are, much of the day we tend to move fairly fluently. We don't do a lot of overthinking of what we should be doing. There are people that do, but generally there's a certain amount of flow. But then we get into some decision, and for many SEMA students, this is what will set them off. SEMA is deemed very, very, very important. So we have lots and lots of swirling thinking round in our heads about what should I do, what exams, what's the best thing to do, what's this, what's that, and that, the overthinking, the kind of, well, what will happen with this, and what will happen to that, and what happens if I fail, all of that kind of thinking is what makes it seem so difficult to make decisions about whether you're going to go for it under the old syllabus or whether you're going to go for it under the new syllabus. It's the thinking, it's not the scenario. And people don't see that easily. But all the evidence is our experience of life experience of a life comes from inside us, and then we blame the outside world for causing it. Some of us take SEMA very seriously, and then we go, oh, I must figure out, what's what, and, whether I can do it in time, and, what would it mean if I failed, and all of that. Now, what happens if you're in that state and you need to make a decision? Well, the more you see its thought intuitively, the less mark this will get. So people sometimes do have insights in the middle of this that just collapses all that thinking to one, puts it to one side. The other way is to kind of take your foot off the accelerator. Try not to dwell on the story around this, and just let it sit and settle. And then your inner wisdom, who's always here, will start speaking again to you. So how have I done this with F2? Well, I've been through various stages of F2. Finding it quite difficult. I think maybe the place to start the story is I went, how can I make this more enjoyable for me? Because to me, you're always going to learn easier in a mental state which is clear of this stuff, this thinking, this overthinking, clear of all of that stuff, and having a bit of joy in it, joy in the experience. Okay, so I thought, well, what am I not sort of saying to myself? Oh, you can't do this because you haven't done F2 yet. Well, my answer to that was to get up and pick up F2. I mean P2, because I actually like the P pillars. And to maybe have a look at that. Now, I happened to be in one of these things when thought was kind of plummeting me down, and momentarily for a couple of days I actually went into what could be called depression. Now I didn't hang on to it and give me that, or particularly give myself that diagnosis that I was now stuck. So 2 days later I came out and was back to normal, basically. I'm not saying that always works for people, and by the way, but for me it was fine. But pretty soon after that, I don't remember going back to study F2 at that point. I think I was thinking, not sure this is going to happen at that stage. Then a new job came on the horizon. And it was the obvious thing to go to. It sort of landed in my lap, as it were. And I thought, well, this is probably me beginning to overthink here, going, well, this is a really important, valuable job, and therefore, and it actually will give me my PER points, quite possibly. So I must, never mind F2 for a moment, we'll just make sure I'm all settled in to this new job. And I know I was thinking around that time, I'll cancel my booking for the 14th of October for the exam, because it's not going to happen. So I start my new job, and my new manager says to me, oh, well, we'll help you with 50% of the bill for your studies. And I went, my immediate thing out of my mouth was, that's great, can you pay for me to have 2019 syllabus F2, the new syllabus, because I'm not going to make it. I was that convinced at that point. And then suddenly it kind of dawned on me, they've got this quiet room, I could study for 1.5 hours, actually, maybe if I kept studying every evening for 1.5 hours, F2 would be possible to pass, just before they got rid of the exam. Sorry if you can hear weird noises, it's our plumbing. So just before the end of the syllabus, I would be able to pass it. So far that's kind of the plan, and I've done 1.5 hours in the offices, and we'll see. And I'm sitting in the unknown. Okay, I do not know whether at the end of this month or so, I don't like publicising the dates of my exams. I said at the end of towards the end of this month, whether I will pass, whether I will sit that exam or not, because I may just say, I'm not ready. And some people think that would be a terrible decision. Well, it'll be a decision I make at the time. Okay. I'm just going to sit with it and see how my studies and how my revision goes. Now, the danger of me telling this story is you think that following me is the answer, that you should just sit with it. Well, I would point out to many of the people who contacted me and say, give me some advice on this, that you actually do have time before you make that decision. One of the illusions of this thing where you've got so much thinking going on is to think that the answer you urgently need to know. And I suggest you don't. As long as you keep studying, you probably don't need to know the answer yet. And in the end, you will make a decision. If you're really pressed for time on making a decision, which most of the time is an illusion, but if you really are pressed for time, you can't get the information or whatever, then you're making a guess, you're not making a decision. I mean, there is no system, as it were, for certain situations that come up thick and fast, and you may have to make a very quick decision on them. There's no model. You just do your best as you can. But in this case, if you quieten down, if you let the thinking settle, there is a real chance that you will come to the answer. And I'm betting that I'm going to come to not either sit that exam or I don't sit that exam. I may sit that exam and fail that exam. That's entirely possible. That's kind of the chance you take whenever you sit an exam. In which case I will have no choice but the new syllabus. And that's it. But I suggest you let this settle. Now I'm going to give you an exercise, which is given to me, I first heard it from Michael Neal, of just putting down on a piece of paper 10 decisions that you have to make, or you think you have to make. On one of them may be you're up against the SEMA situation, SEMA syllabus deadline situation. One of them may be, do I want to go out on a date with someone? Do I want to just make them yes and no for now, and then write down 10 of them. Do I want to go on a date? Do I need to visit the dentist? Whatever from your life, whether these are big decisions that you've made and seem big because you're so much thinking about it, or whether they are smaller decisions, just put them down and then go through the list and say, is it a yes, is it a no, or is it a maybe, because I've not decided yet, undecided yet. Yeah, that'd be an option, undecided yet. And go through them and see that, because your inner guidance is often just comes out with a natural wanting. So see if these things you want. And when it comes to these SEMA syllabus change questions, you may need to get back to them a bit later on. Thanks for listening.